Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the junior knockouts here in the Western region, and our motion of dissection, which is that the lack of financial literacy in the youth is the main cause of poverty in Africa. I read the motion again. The lack of financial literacy in the youth is the main cause of poverty in Africa. Proposing the motion, we have Moi Girls Vokoli, and opposing the motion, we have Kisoko Girls High School. All the best to both teams on stage. I'll be your host for today, Hamza Hussein.
Have you ever realized that financial literacy is an essential skill for the youth to navigate the complexity of today's world so as to break the cycle of poverty in our continent? So was stated from the Financial and Educators Council, who I believe were in support of I, Faith Nasio from Moi Girls High School, Vokoli, proposing the motion that says lack of financial literacy in youth is the main cause of poverty in Kenya. First of all, allow me to elaborate what financial literacy is. Financial literacy is the ability to understand and effectively use various financial skills, such as financial management, budgeting, and investing. It also involves proper management of money and the finances that are in your hands. Also, a youth, according to Article 260 of the Kenyan Constitution, is a person aged between 18 to 35 years. Then, what is poverty? Poverty is a condition characterized by severe deprivation of basic human needs such as nutrition, clean water, sanitation, education, and information. Now, as I narrow down to explain onto my first point, lack of financial literacy leads to poor decision making. Take a case example of a person who has studied finance and a person who has totally no knowledge in finance. The decision in which they are going to make in managing their finances is going to be so different. A person who has financial literacy will make wise decision on how he or she is going to manage the finance that they have. Take a case example of just our neighboring country, Congo. Actually, I agree they have few resources, but since some of them have they lack financial literacy, they are unable to manage those resources well, which leads them to having wars. That is, according to www.nation media, they stated that our neighboring country, Congo, are having wars and raids because they are fighting over the resources which they have. And also, financial literacy encourages the youth to invest in assets and which makes them to appreciate over time. A person who is financially literate, that person will have the knowledge that when that person gets money, they'll be able to invest them, in which over a period of time, they will gain interest and they will appreciate, making that person to gain more income, which will also help in breaking the cycle of poverty that is in our country. And as I conclude, I would like to urge all of you, help us promote financial literacy in our country for the breaking of so that you can break the cycle of poverty that our continent has been facing for over a very long time. Thank you.
16 years ago, a mother shed tears of joy and brought up a great debater by the name Zenaiza. I'm from Kisoko Girls High School to propose the motion that says lack of financial literacy in youth is the main cause of poverty in Africa. Financial literacy is the ability to understand and effectively use various skills. What is poverty? It's a state of being poor. And a youth is a person between 20 to 35 years, not 18 to 35 years. In connection to that, my first point, corruption. This will never fail to be the reason for almost all vices in Africa, in this continent. It has taken over the well-being of the country, with leaders being the initiators. The mentality of you can't find a job without connections is never wrong and seems to be the wrong in the coming future. It has gained grounds and is here to stay. You cannot find a job in Africa without connection. And this is caused by tribalism and nepotism, which are norms in the country today. For example, there was a governor who employed her own family. How will that help the Africans? If you employ your own families, it will benefit alone. So we have to consider this, because the Africa leaders, they are very corrupt. Corruption. Furthermore, low level of education. Education is the key to success. Africans who have gone to education is the key to success. Actually, no education, no success. Kenyans have gone to school, yes, but most of a good number, but not a good number. People are venturing into education. However, a good percentage of Africans lack proper education. Maybe because they couldn't afford for school fees. We have poor people and rich people. So if you are poor, you can't afford for school fees. How will you afford for school fees, and even you can't provide for your food? This has been a nightmare for people seeking employment. No company will employ you if you don't have the level of education they need. How will you, for example, accountant needs mathematics to do his or her job. If you don't know mathematics, how will you calculate the money that is? Let us not bow our heads like ostrich, not seeing the truth. I am Zenaiza from Kisoko Girls High School, here to strongly and wholeheartedly oppose the motion that says the lack of financial literacy in Africa is the main cause of poverty.
Teaching people about money isn't just about money. It's about saving in the world. That is why I, Achungo Belinda, stand in front of you to propose the motion that states financial literacy is the main cause of poverty in Kenya. And I'll start by asking a question. You're talking of education. We are talking about financial literacy. You're saying people need education in order to prosper, and that's why you're saying financial literacy is the main cause of poverty in Kenya. If these people had financial literacy, then we will prosper. We need financial literacy in order to advocate for our funds. You're talking about corruption. I'm talking about corruption. If these youth had financial literacy, they will use they'll use their skills and invest in other opportunities. They'll invest in business opportunities that will enable them to prosper. And on that, I'll narrow down to my points where I'll talk about lack of investment, where when our youth are financially literate, this will encourage investment, whereby this will encourage investment where they'll use their skills and empowerment and be able to choose business opportunity that will be able to prosper. This is a report by OECD which shows that 7% of business fail due to lack of financial literacy. And also, I'll talk about saving rates, where when you are financially literate, you'll be able to save in order to cater for the future. How are you supposed to cater for the future when you're not financially literate? And this is by a report of World Bank, which reports on saving and literacy and states that a huge number of, about 70% of youth fail, not because they lack financially literacy, which disenables them to save. I'll also talk about exploitation and scam. People who are not financially literate, they're exposed to exploitation. I don't know how to handle funds. This, when I go outside there, invest in a business, people will steal from me. I'll not know this person is a scam and this person is telling the truth. This is according to the World Bank report, which reported that 70% of the financially literate youth succeed in their business. Thank you.
My friend, let me tell you something. Financially illiterate means you don't have education. You don't have education about money. How can you save money and yet you don't know even anything about that money? You are financially illiterate. I'm Blessing from Kisoko Girls. I'm here today opposing the motion that lack of financial literacy in youth is the main cause of poverty in Africa? No. Why? In 2015, UN committed itself to the SDGs in its efforts to end global poverty. Its goals include improvements in health, education, equality, economic development, and environmental improvements by 2030. However, at this point in time, Africa isn't on the track to meet these goals. Africa has the highest extreme poverty rates globally, with 23 of the world's 28 poorest countries, which have extreme poverty rates above 30%. Using this poverty line, Africa's extreme poverty rate was recently estimated to be about 35.5%. This rate is 60.8 times higher than the average for the rest of the world. I'm talking about the economic challenges and employment as a cause of poverty in Africa. And also, we've got the healthcare. A person's physical health is central to their overall and well-being. But many communities within several African countries, nations lack access to adequate healthcare. These issues not only result in lower day-to-day quality of life, but also have wider-ranging implications for stifling economic growth and development. This is especially true for communities in rural and remote areas. At the time of COVID-19, in the year 2020, this pandemic broke out. What did it cause? It caused the matters to be even worse than it was. The Institute of Security Studies said that about 30 million more Africans fell into extreme poverty when the pandemic broke out in 2020. Like I said, health problems can lead to reduced productivity and increased health care expenses. When people are too ill, so injured to work or attend school, they can't make strides towards prosperity. When you are sick, I have money, yes, but it's not enough to cater for your health, not enough to cater for me to take my children to school. Another thing is about the emergence of the non-certified colleges and universities. There are some colleges and universities that have emerged and they are not ISO-certified to provide formal education to Kenyans. An example is the National Aviation College, which was some years back said to be non-certified. The government declared all certificates from that institution null even after a number of Kenyans happily graduated from there and they lost their jobs, meaning they have to start afresh. That's closing time consuming. I've already started from primary 8 years, high school 4 years, university 4 years. Then you want me to go back and start learning. That's time consuming. Bless you. Thank you.
The second speaker from the opposition side stated that being financial literacy is about education. You are trying to mean that all these other people who are actually educated and narrowed down into bankruptcy were not educated, don't have knowledge at all? Let me narrow down to the explanation of our first speaker when she stated that financial illiteracy is the ability to understand and effectively use various financial skills such as financial management. When you say that those people are not actually educated, you're just trying to, when I say those people are not educated, I'm trying to narrow down to say that in terms of money, these people don't know what they're doing with the money that they have. Warren Buffett once said, rule number 1, never lose money. Rule number 2, never forget about rule number 1. My first point states that poor money management. When you lack financial literacy, it leads to poor money management. You tend to misuse the money they have, leading to a cycle of poverty. It's just the other day that a boda guy here in Vihiga won a lottery of 1 million. Within 2 months, he was back to square one because of using his money illiterate. He's using money by buying irrelevant things. limited understanding of saving and investing. Many people don't understand the importance of saving and investing. That's why Kim Kemba, an actress that won an Oscar award, a lottery million in 1993, went completely bankrupt. Benka invested heavily in a town known as Georgina, hoping to turn it into a tourist attraction. But all her cash went away. Debt management. Financially illiterate youth are more likely to fall into debt traps due to lack of knowledge about managing loans and credit. Those people who are financially illiterate, they end up embezzling all their funds into irrelevant things that will end up not helping them to cater for them and actually managing to pay the debt they owe, which will lead to stress, some social evils, some turn to steal in order to clear the money that they owe. And with that, I raise their case.
Nasimiwe Dorcas. I am a debater, and debating is my game. Here I come. My friend here, the third speaker, said that there is someone who wanted to be a tourist, but the money was embezzled. That brings us back to corruption. Another thing he said about the boda who own money, but he used it irresponsibly. That brings us to poor education. When you go to school, or when you are being taught on how to manage money, you'll have to have the skills that you can manage that money. But you don't have because of poor education. You didn't go to school. You are not taught about how to manage that business or that money that you have. Here is my first fact. I'm opposing the motion. Unequal distribution of wealth, resources. Wealth and resources in Africa are often not evenly distributed in a way that, including remote areas. Some regions and communities have abundant access to natural and government resources, but some have not. This unequal distribution of resources leads to low living standards, which leads to poverty. Now, listen to me. According to the United Nations, the poverty rate in rural areas in Africa is 17.2%. Imagine that. So painful. Which is more than 3 times higher than urban areas, which is 5.3%. Africa, poverty. Environment factor. Africa's current environment challenges also create poverty-related issues. There is abundant evidence that climate change is one of the main problems of poverty. This climate change leads to global warming. This climate change leads to long-term droughts, and some with no rainfall. If there's no rainfall, there's no food. Another thing, so painful. Please, don't let this one pass you. Government offering contracts to the foreigners. Our government offering contracts to the foreigners. It's a major point to blame our government of Africa. African universities offering good engineering courses, but you never find graduates from these universities in road construction sites or generally construction industries. All you find is Chinese and Indians in the road construction. Ladies and gentlemen, this is our Africa.
You've all been standing here telling us of all the things that have been causing poverty in our country for over a very long time. Africa has been struggling to fight corruption, poor healthcare services for the longest time. How about a change? Why don't we stop in fighting healthcare problems and corruption and focus on fighting financial illiteracy. Maybe the leaders who are engaging in maybe these leaders who are engaging in corruption and poor distribution of resources, maybe they have no knowledge in finance, and that is why they don't know how to differentiate between which country needs more resources and which country needs less because of their development. Maybe if they had just a bit more knowledge in finance, they would have known the difference. How about we stand out and fight for a change. We stop fighting on the things that many people back then had been fighting. Let's fight for different things. The world is evolving.
My friend, we are not standing here to tell you what we don't know. We are standing here to tell you about the facts. It's not only the lack of financial literacy in youth is the main cause of poverty in Africa. There's so many other things, like the way we have came here and tell you all the other things that also cause the poverty in Africa, like the healthcare. So many things. And the fight against poverty in Africa isn't one that can be waged by organizations alone. It needs people like you. People like you. Individuals like you can alleviate poverty in Africa through outreach of international with their donations. It's not only the lack of financial literacy. Please, when you come here, please base on the facts, not on what you don't know.
All right. The lack of financial literacy in the youth is the main cause of poverty in Africa. A very good motion with a lot of points. Now, the major challenge we've had is in as far as qualifying our statements are with evidence which is research based. Now let's see how the individuals fared. Faith, good definition of terms. Now when you talk about poor decision making, and you give Congo as an example, and then you say that Congo lacks financial literacy, and you don't qualify this with a solid source. Of course, you spoke about nation, but then nation, you said, talks about fighting that is in that country. So are we going to link fighting to lacking financial literacy? Or it's going to be about political instability? So there is a challenge here in terms of a coherency of argument. When you give us investments being one of the key things in financial literacy, go ahead and give us, and then remember we're talking about the youth. So we expect you to give us examples of youth who have invested heavily as a result of being financially literate, and these investments have paid back big time. The first speaker from St. Anne's, Zainazar, I hope I got that right. When you say the youth is 20 to 35 years, countering what Faith says, you need to qualify that information with a source. That way it can show that you also did your research. Then you've given us several examples which are just general, not backed by solid evidence. Like when you say tribalism and nepotism and then you say there was a governor, you need to give us the name of the governor, the county, the source. Not just there was a governor who employed their family. When you talk about corruption, give us examples of corruption. And remember we are talking about the youth. So you need to link the statements to the youth and then show how the misappropriation of resources has led to the youth being in that vicious cycle of poverty. So the linkage to key, the key terminologies in the motion was not coming out. And at one point, I lost you in terms of coherency of argument. You had a lot of points, but then that connection to the motion was not coming out so clearly. But you're a debater with a lot of potential.
I would like to thank you guys for the motion, for the debate that you have fronted. But I just wish to encourage the third speakers that by the time you exit the stage, ensure you have summarized your team points. Do not prioritize giving us your individual points over summarizing your team points. That means that you are able to come and tell us what the first speaker and the second speaker of your side have been saying all along, and you are also able to identify any clashes that you guys have been able to rebut. Thank you very much. I wish you all the best.